Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm State Representative Brad Halbrook from Shelbyville, the 107th District. Today we are sounding the alarm on a crisis that's been hiding in plain sight for far too long. Illinois' broken, opaque, and deliberately dysfunctional budget process. While other states have taken steps towards responsible, transparent fiscal management, Illinois continues to operate in the shadows, encouraging secrecy, rushing decisions, forcing taxpayers to foot the bill without a voice in the process. In 2015, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities ranked Illinois' budget process among the worst in the nation. Nearly a decade later, not much has changed. We continue to see unreliable revenue estimates, a lack of meaningful oversight, and a refusal to use common sense tools for accountability and planning. These weaknesses just don't make the budget harder to understand. They actively conceal the state's fiscal problems, overspending, exploding pension debt, and some of the highest tax burdens in the country. Rather than address these root issues, Illinois politicians have leaned on tax hikes, more than 70 over the last 15 years, costing Illinoisans over $110 billion. These tax increases have not solved our problems. Instead, they have fueled distrust in government and contributed to the exodus of families and job creators from our state. How did we get here? Through shell bills, last-minute amendments, and overnight votes on thousands of pages of budget language, often before lawmakers or the public have had a chance to review them. This is not responsible government. It's dysfunction. This is what tyrannical one-party rule looks like. If we want to break the cycle of overspending and overtaxing, we must reform the budget process, starting with an accurate revenue forecasting, adequate review time, and real transparency. Illinoisans deserve a budget that they can understand, that they can afford, and that they can trust. It's time to shine the light on the process and demand much better. Governor Pritzker, we are not human ATM machines with an unlimited amount of cash. And now I'll turn it over to Leader Blaine Wilhauer.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that, and thank you for being here today. At some point, we just need to be honest with the people of Illinois. For once, there is no reason under the sun the government spending in this state should have increased by 45% since 2019, since Governor Pritzker got in there. It's well above the rate of inflation. And let's look at the state of affairs here in the state of Illinois. Our GDP growth is stagnant. There's more businesses closing than starting. Our population continues to decline, no matter what the governor and all these other folks say. But at the end of the day, the budget that we see here, at least that I've seen here since 2019. They're not serious documents. It's fiscal fantasy. It's not. It takes zero into account the actual dire fiscal circumstances that we're in, and that's just what we hear. That's what we get. So we're sitting here this week. We may see a budget today. We may see a budget tomorrow. We may need to see a budget tonight. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because it's all fake. It really is. It's smoke and mirrors. It's misdirection. And these leaders, Senator Harmon and Welch and the governor, there's a reason that they can't get this together, that they can't come up with answers, because there are no easy answers. They've made sure of that with the policies that they've pushed. It's all misdirection from the massive hole that's been blown into budget by J.B. Pritzker's severe mismanagement over his reign here. What I can guarantee you when this so-called budget comes out, there's not going to be any structural reforms in it. There's not going to be any hard choices made. They're all just going to be kicked down the road, and the Illinois citizens are going to have to continue to pay the price, continue to suffer for a government that is inept. They care more about their own preservations and J.B. Pritzker's political fantasies than they do the actual working people of Illinois. You know, the only cuts that I've seen around here since I've been in office are political cuts. Political cuts for their special interest buddies, like the Invest in Kids program that was a great program that wasn't near big enough, that was actually helping people that need help in this state. But J.B. Pritzker got rid of it because his political buddies don't like it, and that's what matters. But we're spending beyond our means. We're growing government at a pace that's completely unsustainable, and we always place the burden squarely on the working families and the actual job creators that are already they're tapped out, and they have been for a long time. There's no long-term plan in place. It's just another round of gimmicks, short-term gimmicks, tax hikes, which contrary to what Governor Pritzker said, that he doesn't support those things. I think we could name off several of them, tax and fee increases that he's done over his tenure that disproportionately are burden the people that can afford it least. And, handouts to ultimately prop up a system that is completely unsustainable. And that's what we've got here, The worst thing is there's people in this building, even on the other side of the aisle, that they know that this stuff isn't sustainable. They know the path that we're on. They call it a fiscal cliff. I call it a fiscal death spiral. But the Democrat power structure, they silence any voices that actually disagree with this, that want to stand up for a little bit of fiscal sanity. I mean, they're not even standing up for a lot, just a little here. But, look at what they did to Fred Crespo. He puts forth a couple ideas that, aren't really revolutionary, and gets silence kicked off his committees and everything else. We need serious reforms in this state. More spending is not going to cut it. Structural reforms, not short-term bailouts. Let's stop pretending that tax revenue from the actual people that work in this state is infinite, or that the exodus from Illinois isn't real, because it is real. Families, retirees, businesses, they're voting with their feet and they're leaving. We need to focus on reducing the size of government. We really need to focus on getting the government the heck out of the way. If we did that in Illinois, that'd make a big difference. That would encourage economic growth. We need smart deregulation, especially in things like energy, which we have abundance of in Illinois, which we used to export, and it used to be a big reason that manufacturers came and built things here, because if we're going to save Illinois, we need to build things in Illinois, but they're not going to do it because every policy that we push encourages them to get out of here. And the one advantage that we had with all of this nonsense was what energy was cheap, and they killed that too. So that all of this stuff is man-made. Illinois's got great advantages. The only reason that we don't thrive is because we got a government that's mismanaged, that's out of control. It can be solved by putting, by electing leaders that are actually going to do their job and make some tough choices. That we don't need to bring the legislature back this summer for more money. We don't need to be screaming about Donald Trump and the things that he's doing. And we don't need to raise our taxes. We need to get our act together. It's time the Illinois legislature and the governor get serious and be adults and think about cutting the fat, because there's plenty of it. And with that, I'll hand it over to Senator Chesney.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Andrew Chesney. I represent the 45th District in Northwest Illinois. Let me be blunt. The people I represent are fed up, and rightfully so. We're in the final days of session. Time is running out. And what are we debating? We're not debating real solutions, not relief for working families. Instead, with few exceptions, the only bills we are moving forward are those that check the boxes of the radical left and the woke agenda. Right to die legislation that devalues life, abortion bills handed out like candy, more gun control that criminalize the law-abiding citizens, and new mandates that force our schools to shoulder the burden for educating illegal immigrants. While Illinois families are tightening their belt, Democrats are doubling down on the same failed policies. And where is Governor Pritzker? He's not here. He's chasing national headlines, playing presidential politics, and watching the state of Illinois burn through his rear view mirror. Here's what we're not seeing. We are not going to see in this budget any tax relief. We are not going to see that the Democrat majority are going to roll back the crushing tax burden on working families. No plan to fix the pension crisis, and no effort to improve the business climate that are for our job creators. In fact, we are going to see the complete opposite. The Democrats are pushing a backroom deal with union bosses to change the Tier 2 pension system, a move that will put us further in debt. With regard to priorities, while working families are struggling to pay gas, groceries, and property taxes, Democrat leaders want to hand millions more to illegal immigrants, and it's an insult. You cannot claim to fight for the working class while turning your back on them in favor of those that broke the law. After raising taxes by $1 billion last year, Democrats are back for more. They're now talking about another new round of taxes on digital ads and services, exactly the kind of ideas that send jobs and businesses to flee the state. Do you know what else they're missing from the budget? Even a mention, not even a mention of spending cuts, not a word. Fred Crespo tried to do a spending cut and got booted. That's their seriousness on spending cuts. Politicians in charge refuse to do what every person in Illinois is doing, which is tightening their belt. This is not monopoly money. This is taxpayer money. And we owe it to the people to govern with discipline, to cut the fat, and to eliminate waste. Here is the playbook of the Democrat Party. They are going to attack businesses. They are going to attack Here is the Democrat playbook, and it's painfully familiar. They are going to attack businesses, attack taxpayers, watch both flee, lie about it, deny the damage, raise taxes on those that remain, and repeat. Let me repeat it. They are going to attack the businesses, attack the taxpayers, watch both flee, then they're going to lie about it, deny the damage, raise taxes on those that remain, and repeat. The fiscal reality of this state is not up for debate. It's not a partisan talking point. It's a freight train, and the Democrats are asleep at the switch. Illinois needs a budget grounded in truth, responsibility, and respect for the people who pay the bills. Enough is enough. We will now open it up to questions.
Where to start? Governor said he's not gonna. He will veto a bill that has broad-based taxes on working families. How do you guys interpret that?
Well, is that the same governor that said he was not going to support a gerrymandered map? I think that's the same governor. So I think the governor has a political interest in trying to fight for the taxpayers because his interest is in presidential politics, not state politics. This is clearly a job that bores him now, and it's evident by the pain that he's putting on everybody that we represent and everybody throughout the state. And so if anything that comes out of the governor's mouth, it's only to advance his political and presidential agenda. I don't think it's anything to advance the interests of the state of Illinois.
He also said he's in talks with legislative leaders regularly, even some Republicans. He says he said that he's taking some good ideas from Republicans. What good ideas do you think should be top of the list, top 2 or 3 that the governor should take from you guys to get this budget right?
My name is Chris Miller. I state representative for the 101st District and also the chairman of the Freedom Caucus. But I think that whenever you listen to politicians, particularly like J.B. Pritzker, is you have to watch what they do and not what they say. You know, the distinction between the two parties here in the state of Illinois are very clear. The Republicans are standing up for the hardworking taxpayers, the working man, and trying to do things and stand for things that are actually going to benefit them, while we see our governor continually capitulate and put illegals over citizens and make NGOs over instead of giving relief to taxpayers, and also we're putting China first rather than Illinoisans first.
Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. State Representative Martin McLaughlin, 52nd District. As it relates to the governor's budget, and we were here 3 weeks ago. We actually produced, Jed Davis and this group, a budget. I don't know, did anyone get a question from the governor's office on the proposed $5 billion cuts in budget? So we actually proposed an alternative budget. Not a single one of us was taken seriously, and the media's been asking for it for years. So I find it hard to believe that the governor actually has an agenda. As it relates to taxes, there's an omnibus energy bill that I think last night was just floating around. $1 billion in tax credits going to a Chinese energy company that even Texas and Michigan can agree don't need incentives to come to Illinois. So, Governor, I want to ask you, why do you care more about Beijing than Barrington or Batavia? These are the kind of things that are called revenue increases, or I call them demsplaining for tax increases. This stuff goes on constantly, guys. So the terminology isn't important. As Representative Miller said, the outcome is important. So when this omnibus energy bill comes forward to give away another $1 billion of our citizens' money, I can't take the governor serious in the premise of your question. Thank you.
And obviously, the budget's top of mind. We're all waiting to see the details, but there's a lot of other stuff going on here. Everything from Senate Bill 8 last night, making the final hurdle, to even changes to community college. Where are we at on your guys' position for the changes that are being proposed from 4-year degrees at community colleges and so on?
Yeah, Greg, thanks for that question. Really, we just want to protect the taxpayers, make sure that tax increases don't happen, and that there are guardrails set up to keep that from happening down the road. And there's also some DEI language in that bill that needs taken out. So we issued a press release yesterday. We asked for 3 things. We asked to protect the taxpayers, meaning they cannot raise taxes for the next 5 years. Property taxes for the next 5 years, any more than they have been doing it the previous 3. So if they raise 1.5%, and they've been doing it the last 3. But we don't want to see property taxes go up as a result of this program. And that's what we've been told by all of our community colleges, that they will not raise property taxes as a result of this program. All we're asking that for is just be placed in the statute. The DEI language, there's some bad DEI language in there. We'd like to see that come out. And lastly, we'd like to see it set for a referendum down to the voters for approval for this program. So we're not against the idea of this in general, but it needs cleaned up a little bit. And I have had conversations with the bill sponsor on these issues. So we'll see where it goes. But yes, we need to make sure the taxpayers are protected. The DEI language must come out, and we would like to see a referendum.
Back to the budget, federal CMS announced that they're going to start trying to not claw back, but try to shore up the Medicaid funding for non-citizens, saying that it seems in these states that are allowing it, like Illinois, the money is supposed to go for like emergency services, but instead for Illinois it seems to be going towards all medical stuff. I asked the governor about it yesterday. He said that this is all about just getting big tax cuts for Trump's billionaire buddies, right? Your thoughts on the federal government's role, not just with the non-citizen stuff, but possible higher ed funding, possible K-12 funding freezes. How is that going to impact Illinois, and is that good or is that bad?
Well, the Democrats have continually shown, we spent $3.2 billion on illegals. We blew through $8 or $9 billion on COVID funds. And they're going to set up this budget to cry about Donald Trump, right? Because our fiscal house is not in order. They continually raise taxes and they continue to spend. But instead of possibly getting in line with the Trump administration, they're doubling down on these initiatives. We're running continued bills. I sit on the immigration committee as the Republican spokesman. I see bills all the time doubling down on the sanctuary state, sanctuary city policies here in the state of Illinois. And Donald Trump has made it perfectly clear where he stands on that issue. The DOJ, the State Department, everybody has made it perfectly clear where they stand on those issues. And then you go to higher ed funding. You go to what's happening in our colleges and our 4-year universities. We're talking about, the woke indoctrination in our schools. We're talking about what's happening in our public education system. Then we talk about Title IX violations. With boys being allowed to play in girls' sports. You see what's happening all over the state with that issue, and you also see about boys being in girls' locker rooms. These are common sense initiatives that 95% of the people support. They support whenever they don't want girls or boys competing in girls' sports. They don't want boys in girls' locker rooms. Yet the governor and the Democrats continue to double down on these radical, woke issues, and at the end of the day, they're going to cry about the fact that Donald Trump's going to withhold federal funding. Well, he should withhold federal funding, okay? If we can't get our fiscal house in order, then you continue to have these woke initiatives and fly in the face of common sense and real-world possibilities, and you're going to say we're not going to comply with Trump's mandates or his executive orders. What do you expect is going to happen? You think Trump's going to sit there and say, well, yeah, you guys keep invading girls' safe spaces and running all these boys in these track meets and keep pushing this woke radical agenda, keep putting DEI in every bill that we see. and also support illegal immigrants over the citizens of this great state of Illinois, of course, if I'm him, I'm going to cut that federal funding, and he should cut that funding.
Representative Holbrook, I want to ask you a question about a bill that you've had sitting in Rules Committee since the beginning of the session, the Indiana-Illinois Boundary Commission. Obviously, across the state line in Indiana, Governor Braun signed their version of that legislation into law, but you must know here in Illinois with the Democratic majorities in the legislature with the governor, that's a non-starter. So what's the point of your version of that bill here, and what hopes you have for those conversations moving forward now that Indiana is proceeding with that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a red herring at best. We're here to talk about the budget, and that's what's important. Ladies and gentlemen, we are right about 60, 61, 62 hours from midnight Saturday night. We've not seen the budget. We've laid out the situation and what's going on here. Lack of transparency, $110 billion worth of tax hikes over the last 15 years, this mass exodus of people out of this state. It's not helping to grow our state and to make a better place for people to raise families and to work and to grow a business. And so that's the bottom line, is we need to see the budget, we need transparency, and we need it now.
I guess, but are you hopeful that Indiana having that conversation on its own? My understanding is their version doesn't require Illinois to have its own commission, that'll spark conversation here?
You know, what you guys always fail to ask about that or think about that, why has 32 or however many odd counties in the state of Illinois overwhelmingly? I mean, I'm not talking that these counties are just barely passing that. They're passing it with 70 and 80%. Why do they want out of Illinois so bad? That's the question that you need to be asking, but nobody asks it. They want out of Illinois because they're not being respected by their government. Their government continues to push policies that drives away every one of their opportunities. You know, they continue to push policies that corrupts the education system. They're running afoul of their values, both morally and economically. Time after time after time, they've done it so much that these people are so fed up that they see no other option. You know, ideally, yeah, we would love for everybody to stay in Illinois. We would love for downstate Illinois to have a voice. It's not just downstate Illinois. I mean, you go talk to the people in inner city Chicago. Go talk to them about how happy they are with their government. Talk to people in the suburbs about how happy they are with their property taxes. These are all a result of government policies that are out of control. So instead of asking questions like that, you need to start asking why. Why don't you go into those neighborhoods? Why don't you go into our counties and, you know, these places that have been destroyed by government and start asking them why they're so fed up instead of asking that question.
Well, but my question is, obviously the bill's not moving here. Is there a mechanism for these conversations to happen in a way that could give those voters what they want if the Illinois legislature won't take up the issue? Is there a possibility to do it at the, through the federal government, or is
Fire Governor Pritzker. Fire Governor Pritzker and most of the legislature.
Yeah, we don't need a new state, we need a new governor. And that's the bottom line. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here. Appreciate your attention and questions, and let us know if we can help you. Thank you.